Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be going through another backtesting session on gold. This time I'm going to be reviewing the month of August price action, showing you all of the potential setups which you could have capitalized on using my simple and logical liquidity based strategy. If you guys are new here, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, more backtesting sessions and more trade breakdowns. But let's not waste any more time. Let's head over to the charts now and let's get straight into it.
Alright, so let's get straight into it. Let's create a session for gold August price action. So I normally just generically set the account balance at 100k just to basically become accustomed to seeing the bigger numbers, which is important when you come to trade in these funded accounts. So let's get up gold. And as I said, we're going to start and do August price action. So I'll start off with the end of July just so that we cover all of August, and we will complete it on the 1st of September. If you guys want, you can fill this in for yourself, but for the sake of this video, we're going to leave all of this blank because it doesn't really matter. We will start the session and drag this down to get the full screen. And it's glitching out a little bit, so I'm going to refresh the page. There we go. When you start the session as well, you want to click auto off so you can basically maneuver the screen more easily. But let's start off on the daily time frame, as I always do when I come to the charts and do any form of analysis. So very clearly, at the beginning of August, price was clearly bullish on the daily trend. We had this break right here. So this low becomes sort of the main trend low. Price then created a higher high, pulled back, and now we are expecting buys towards previous highs until price shows us a clear indication that it may want to reverse and take out previous lows. What we can also see is that price had held this daily area of demand. It wasn't imbalanced, but it was a previous area of demand and price is reacting from it. So in a situation like this, I would look to trade off a previously mitigated area of demand, even though it wasn't left imbalanced. You can see it clearly on the 4 hour as well. It was this one bearish candle, swept liquidity to the left, and price is clearly reacting from it. So what we can see here is that as of right now, price has not broken this 4 hour structure. However, notice how the candle is closed. It has sort of closed in line with this previous structure to the left. And for me, that is a clear sign of liquidity being formed. And I think most people are going to be seeing this as a sort of supply zone to sell from. And because of that, you have a lot of liquidity resting above this area. So straight away, my idea right now is to look for buys up into these previous highs. So if we head over to the 1 hour to see the structure more clearly, and we'll just also map on the 1 hour trend, because once price came into this daily area of demand, the 1 hour flipped bullish when it broke this most recent lower high, pulled back, retested this sort of area, and then it has also broken structure again. So really, we are looking for buys anywhere within this range. You could also mark on this as a structure point, but looking on the 1 hour, that is sort of just a minor structure. Price could easily come down to here and still be bullish. But the main idea, like I said, is to buy up into this previous high as an area of liquidity to target. So where could we look to buy from as our point of interest? For myself, what I can see is that, well, I would basically be interested in a few different levels. The first one would be this whole sort of hourly demand. You could also refine it to this one candle, but personally I like to draw it on this whole sort of area from the wick to the wick, because if you zoom out to a higher time frame, this whole area here would be the demand. But also what I've just noticed as well is that price is moving very correctively, so it may not come down into this zone, and it has also swept this liquidity level. So if we mark that on, we can see that price swept this low, and it also swept all of these lows, if you can see that, tapping into this 5-minute demand as well, right? So we've had, sorry, this should be a sweep. So price swept this low, it swept all of these lows which were created at the beginning of London session. If you guys can see, that's 7:30 UK time, so that's London session or near the London session open. Swept all of these lows into the demand. So what I would be looking for now would be, if price can break this high on the 5-minute, I'll look to jump in some longs and take price up to this high. If it comes lower, we can then look to get in longs at this sort of area instead, if price gives us a valid confirmation. But let's see what price does. And there we go. Almost immediately we get a break of that structure. So this is now a valid setup, and I would look to take it from this area of demand just here. And why this area of demand? This was the candle which swept all of the liquidity to the left. It was imbalanced, and it's just a very clear level of demand. Ideally as well, we want to see price create some form of inducement above this zone. However, that is not required for me to enter a position. That is just an extra confluence. So I'm going to set the limit just here, have stops just below this demand, and first target will be this high, but ultimately I'm looking to take this up to that main structure to the left, which we mentioned at the start of this video. So I'm going to set this limit and we'll see how it plays out. There we go. So let's see how price comes into our zone. So this is what I meant. So I was ideally looking for some form of inducement above the zone, and this for me is now a perfect setup because we've had sweep, break, and we also have liquidity above the demand. So watch the reaction once this area is swept. Even if price doesn't completely reverse from this zone, you will almost definitely see some form of reaction from it, or price could miss us. There we go. So price has now tagged us in, took out these lows, and let's see if we get a rally. There we go. So that first target was hit. We can now mark this as a new breaker structure. And because we're already in this trade, I would not look to re-enter. I would just let this play out. Maybe also make this break even now as well. Just because price broke that high, pulled back, retested demand. So logically, it doesn't have any reason to come back to this zone if our analysis is correct. But once again, if we look left on the 1 hour, I'd be very surprised if price reverses from here without taking out the previous high. So cool, so there we go. First trade of the backtesting session. And what we can also do now is price took out this high, but it still looks very bullish. So the chances of it now reversing and continuing bearish are quite slim. If you had seen price do something like this instead, where it came slightly above and then reacted, we could consider some sells. But based on this momentum, I would not want to sell, and I'd much rather wait for some more potential buys up to this previous high. So I'm going to also keep this level on as a potential area where price could retrace into for the buys. But let's also just keep monitoring price. Yeah, I'm not seeing much apart from this level at the moment. So what you could see now, we have this area, which I would not want to buy above. I would want to see price come lower, take out previous liquidity first. But what we can also see is we have this sort of 15-minute demand as well. So two potential areas where we could look for buys, either this one below the liquidity, or after price takes out all of this trendline liquidity into the demand below. So let's just see how price reacts to each of those zones. So that low was now taken out. So we also now have Asia low resting above that demand. So I think you will very probably see some form of reaction within this zone. So let's have a look and see what price does once Asia low is swept. Because this is a 15-minute demand, we can head over to the 5-minute and look for our entry, or even the 3-minute to make it a bit more refined if the structure tells us to do so. So I'm going to go over to the 3-minute actually, just so it's a little bit more clear. So the structure I'd want to see it break at the moment would be this high. Okay, so now the structure would be this high. If price continues lower from here, then the trade is invalidated. But because it has only just swept the demand low, if it now breaks higher, then this would be a perfect setup, because not only do we have price taking out Asia low into demand, but you also have a sweep of the demand. So all of the traders which had a limit set at this zone would be stopped out. So let's have a look. Price needs to close above this level for me. And there we go. So clear closure above this level. And I'm not going to wait for a pullback. I'm just going to set market execution here, because this is already going to give a sufficient risk to reward for me. And as for targets, we could either wait for a slight pullback just so that this target is a 1 to 3, or we could target this main trend high up here. Personally, actually, I'm going to target this liquidity level and wait for a pullback just so that this is a 1 to 3, which is my minimum risk to reward if I'm going to enter a trade. So let's set this like so. There we go. So we are executed into that trade. And let's see if price can give us our rally. There we go. And there we go, TP hit. So based on this, you could probably have targeted this high based on all of this bullish momentum, but I'm happy with that 1 to 3. And we are now out of the trade. So the next liquidity target would clearly be this high. There we go. So I would now consider this a break of structure. It did get a wick above, but you know, on the lower time frames, this would be a closure above, like we can see on the 5-minute. So this is fine. I'll mark that as a break of structure. And where could we see price come into now? So I'm no longer interested in price coming all the way down here, because if it did that, it would probably be bearish, and then we would be looking for sells instead. But if we go back to the higher time frame, what we can see, and this is a great tip for you guys and one that I always use, is in order for a continuation, we basically have to ask ourselves, is price in an area to the left where it's likely to reverse from and continue all the way back down? And what I mean by a likely area would be one of two things. So has price swept higher time frame liquidity? In this case, no. Is it in an area of supply, which would likely cause a reaction? In this case, no. It's just in this sort of empty imbalance. So the probability of this continuing higher is much higher than the probability of it reversing and continuing lower. So based on that, we're still looking to buy. We have no reason to think that price may reverse from here. What we can see is we have this sort of extreme demand extreme meaning that it is at the lowest point of this trend leg. So if price comes into this zone, I would consider buying. Equally, if price were to sweep this area and come slightly lower, that would also be a valid area to buy from if price provides a valid confirmation. So let's have a look at what lower time frame does. So this demand broke and there's not really any thing I would go off there, so I'm not going to trade off that. There we go, so price is within our demand zone. One of the things that makes this demand zone higher probability as well is that it took liquidity to the left. So if you guys want to backtest this for yourself, when you go off supply and demand zones, the ones that are higher probability are the ones which take out some lows to the left, or in the case of a supply zone, it takes out highs to the left. And these are the ones which I have found through data that are more likely to give a reaction and are more likely to hold. So now, based on the fact that price is in our demand, we simply wait for a break of the most recent structure just here. Okay, so now we want to see this high broken instead because price created a new low. And there we go. So let's have a look at where we could potentially enter from. So right now we could set a limit on this 5-minute demand. It meets all of the criteria. It was imbalanced, has inducement above it, and it's also at the lowest point of this bullish leg. So let's set a limit there. I'm going to have a bit of a bigger stop loss just below this demand in case price wants to sweep these buyers here, including us, and come lower into the demand zone. And I'm going to target previous high for, once again, a nice 1 to 3. This looks even nicer on the 15-minute actually. So 15-minute, you can see that this demand zone we've marked swept the low to the left. Once again, demand zones which sweep liquidity are higher probability. We had a break of structure, imbalance, and we also have this sort of inducement above it as well. So let's see if price wants to tag us in. Oh, there we go. That looks very impulsive. A lot of the times though, when you see gold do a move like this, it's a similar thing to JPY pairs. It looks like a reversal, but it's actually just price seeking previous liquidity for then a continuation. So let's see how it reacts at this zone. There we go. So that looks nice. You would now expect price to at least take this high. So let's play it on. There we go. If you missed this previous entry, you could have also set a limit on this demand after the price broke structure, pulled back, retested, and then you could buy up to that high. But yeah, now once again, price has broken this high. So we're still looking to continue buying up towards this high. So yeah, I'm just going to draw a line there just to mark it on. There we go. Not really seeing too much just yet. Price took out this liquidity as well, so you could see a bigger retracement. Yeah, so probably going to get a bigger retracement now. Let's see where price may come into. So overall, this still looks bullish to me. It has just taken out some of this major liquidity up here, but it has now also come down, taken out opposing liquidity at these lows. And on the 4-hour, you can actually see we have this whole sort of demand zone. So if price comes into there, that would be a valid zone for me to buy from. But what we can also see is that we actually have one further down as well. So we have this one, which is the one I previously marked. I'm going to get rid of this one actually, just because what I've just noticed is that we have all of this trendline liquidity right here. So I would not want to buy until that is taken out. So yeah, this zone is the one that I'm interested in now. I'm not really interested in selling because, actually no, you could look for some sells. So we've had, if we're looking for some shorter term sells, we've had a sweep of this high, right? We also had this whole supply zone here was retested. Looking at the 15-minute, we can see that price sort of had this pullback, push up. Most people would have been seeing this as a breaker structure, but then price impulses over to the downside. And where I would look for price to come into for a retest would be this whole zone right here, because this is sort of the whole supply which caused this breaker structure. On the 1 hour, you can see that more clearly. So if price can come up to this zone, we can look for some potential sells, but also price has now just come into our demand zone. So let's see if we can buy up to that zone. This would be a good sort of hedge as well, because we could buy up to the zone and look to sell from the zone. But if price doesn't sell from the zone, is fine because we've already capitalized on the buys. So let's see how it reacts here. So you could sort of say it broke this structure, but that's not personally something I would take. Look at all of this selling pressure as well. I don't think that's a great quality setup. To me, this looks very corrective as well. So price, look how price is leaving liquidity below, moving up quite correctively. I don't think this would take the high. It needs to come lower, take out more lows first. So let's have a look how it reacts within this zone. We could look on the 5-minute for an entry. Right, so we've got the sell-off, but again, this is not something I would take, simply because if you look at the 5-minute structure, the most recent high was this one. So in order for this to be confirmed, you would technically need to see this low broken, and by which point price is already at the previous low anyway. So yeah, let's just keep monitoring price. If it comes back up, regrabs these highs, then I would consider sells. But for now, nothing is valid for me. Yeah, and there we go. So price wants to continue lower. Let's go back out to higher time frame, see what it does next. Right, so what I have just seen is, so looking at the 4 hour, this was the main change of character. So what we're looking to trade, so our sort of range is between the low and the high. Price has now come down all the way, took out this 4 hour low. So every single person buying within this range is now taken out. We've had this nice 4 hour closure as well. So we can look to potentially look at some buys up to the previous highs, or to at least some previous liquidity levels. Keeping in mind, daily is still overall bullish. We have these sort of relative equal highs up here as well. So let's see if we can look to get in on those buys. So this looks quite nice. We've had 5-minute breaker structure just there, inducement above the demand. So if we set a limit here, stops just below that low, and I'm going to target this previous high. Let's see if that gets tagged in. It's not looking like it's going to pull back, to be honest. No, so I'm going to cancel this. Just going to mark on that 5-minute structure as well, because what I have just seen is prices sort of creating all of this trendline liquidity here. We have this sort of 5-minute demand just below. So if price comes into this zone, I would consider buys there instead. Again, though, it's not looking like it's going to pull back. There we go. I'm going to buy from this zone. A bit of a wider stop loss. And we can target this high up here. Yeah, so I'm going to set this. Doesn't look good, to be honest. Cool, there we go. So first loss of the session. Still see this going higher, to be honest, but I'm not seeing anything for now. So when price is doing something like this, it's quite ambiguous because the 1 hour is technically bearish. Price came up, reacted from this previous structure, but the 4 hour is bullish and it has just swept this low. So you could see it go higher or you could see it go lower. Personally, I'm not seeing too much. I'd much rather wait for buys as well, just in line with that overall higher time frame narrative. If we zoom out. So what you could see actually is that we had this 1 hour breaker structure. So the 15-minute is still bearish between this high and this low. Price sort of retested into this structure. We then had it flip bearish internally. So following this internal trend here, broke structure again, just there. And we have a few areas of liquidity I've just noticed. So we have this wick high, which leads into this imbalance above. If that gets taken, I'm happy to take some sells. There we go. So let's see if price presents any sells. There we go. So following this structure, we had higher low, higher high. Price then breaks into new lows. Like so. I'm not really seeing an entry area just yet. Actually, maybe this zone just there. Clear area of supply. Let's set a limit just there. I'm going to put stops just above that high. And I'm going to target this low just there. And make that a 1 to 3. So there we go. Let's have a look. Cool. So tagged in. This was the supply zone I'm going off. Once again, same setup over and over again. Sweep of liquidity to the left. Break a structure, retest, sell down. into previous liquidity. So we've now had another breaker structure. If you missed the original entry, you could look to sell from this supply. So something like this with probably stops above that area. So this one would be sort of a lower risk to reward, not something I would take. Yeah, there you go. You got a reaction from that supply. If you wanted to be a bit more risky, you could have done something like this. But as I said, that's not personally something that I'd be comfortable with. But anyway, the original trade played out. Price has now taken out that opposing liquidity level. But once again, it is kind of just in this range. So I'm just going to let the higher time frame play out for a while and see what price wants to do. Does it want to continue lower, take these lows, or break out again and take these highs? If it does take these highs, then we could see it come higher back into these highs up here. But for now, let's just wait and see what happens because it is quite range bound. Okay, so I'm now favoring buys. So once again, reminding ourselves of higher time frame. Price is in daily demand. It pulled back, swept 4-hour lows back into that demand, held it once again, and now it has also sort of broken out of this 15-minute high. This could easily be a liquidity grab for sells, but if price does start to continue higher from here, then yeah, so based on that, I don't think this is a liquidity grab. It looks more like a continuation. So let's have a look. So we also had another breaker structure here, which I'll mark on. We also have a build up of liquidity here. We have this sort of 5-minute demand zone. So let's see how price reacts if it comes to there. There we go. So this was also a sweep of Asia low into that demand. Let's see if it holds. We want to see this high broken. There we go. So now we have a closure above it, looking to buy into these highs. Once again, we look left, ask ourselves, is price reacting from anything that is likely to cause a reversal? No. We have this liquidity above. There's no area supply in here and it hasn't taken out any liquidity. We also have clear area of demand. We zoom in on that. Breaker structure, inducement above imbalanced demand. This is a valid setup. So I'm going to set the trade and target this high. Just going to make the stop slightly smaller so that we can get a 1 to 3. And there we go. Cool, so I'm liking this. We also created these highs above, took out this floor of support or liquidity as well. Price is creating more highs as well. If you have a look at this, we've got all of these highs accumulating. And there we go, very quick lower time frame trade. Price broke structure again. And if we just zoom out as well, real quick, we are now looking for price to take the next liquidity level. So we have this one leading into this imbalance. We have this one, and we also have this one. So those are the next liquidity targets for buys. Let's see where price could come into. So we sort of have this area of demand. The reason I like this one, notice how it swept this low to the left, then rallied, broke structure, and we also have lots of lows resting above it. This would be a lower probability trade, by the way, because it is a 5-minute point of interest. Yeah, you could sort of force it a little bit and say this was a break of structure, we can retest and then look to buy, but that's not something I would take. And to be honest, this is quite range bound price action, so I'm just going to let it play out. There we go. So that was a good zone, but not something I would personally take, to be honest. We've now broken structure again. Okay, so price is clearly very bullish. It didn't respect any of these liquidity levels. I've just noticed now we have this valid level of demand. So it would be nice if price can come into this zone before it takes out this high, because then we can look to buy up with clear targets at this high. Okay, there we go. So price tapped into the demand. We had all of these lows resting above it as well. It didn't come into the high above, so we're not expecting a reversal just yet. Let's see if we can get a valid confirmation on this. Notice how in this case there's not really any structure for it to break. If you're analyzing the current structure, this would be the most recent low. So technically you need to see it break this high for a break of structure, and then by then it's already at the target anyway. So unless price can come down, re-grab these lows, I wouldn't look to buy from this. Yeah, so there you go. Price already took out the high. It has also taken out that main daily and 4-hour high now as well. So we could see it now come down, take out this low. So let's get rid of some of this as well to make it a little bit clearer. Cool, so there we go. Still expecting price to gravitate towards this high as well, just based on the fact that we've got all of these highs in this area now. It's a clear area of resistance that people are selling from, but because it has swept this high, fell to close above, I would look for price to at least come down and take out this wick low here. So let's see if it can do that. There we go. So that wick was taken out. Let's see if we get a reaction for buys here or not. So price looks like it wants to continue lower. So the next area of demand would be this sort of 4-hour zone. So let's see if price can come into there. Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so this looks good. We had a sweep of this low into the demand. Price has given this quite clear reaction. Once again though, the structure we'd need to see it break is this high in order for a valid trade. So let's just see if that happens. There we go. So clear break at that level, but you know, look how impulsively price moved away. There's not, and it actually has taken out our liquidity level to the left now as well. So we can get rid of all of this because this was that internal trend, but price has now broken the external high just there. So we now look for buys once again because price is overall still bullish, but between this low and this high, that becomes our new range. Not currently seeing too much, so let's just play price a little bit more. Yeah, still not seeing much. Let's play it on a little bit. Okay, so this could be a nice setup. We've had break of the structure once again, and down here we have some discounted levels of demand. We have this one, and I would also consider buys if this level got swept as well, just because it is that clear 1 hour liquidity level leading into the imbalance below. But also we could see a reaction from demand. So let's have a look. Nice level of inducement above it now as well. Price is also pulling back quite correctively. So let's have a look on the 5 minute for a potential entry. So this, I wouldn't really consider that a change of character just because this was a single candle pullback. So let's keep playing it for a bit. Okay, so now price broke into new lows. So we need to see this high broken for a valid change of character. And there we go. So this would be, once again, an example of a perfect setup because price swept the demand low, but it did sweep it. Broke structure with imbalance. We have this clear area of demand. So I'm going to set a limit on this zone. Slightly bigger stop. Probably at this low actually. Targeting these highs. Actually, I'm just going to go for a slightly smaller stop. This is a bit riskier because price could easily tap into this imbalance down here. But let's just set this and target previous highs for 1 to 3. Cool, so we are now tagged in. There we go. So one area I would watch for a reversal would be this liquidity level. So we have seen a small reaction from it. So price has also taken out these lows now. So if buys are going to continue, probably see it from here. Yeah, so there you go. All of these Asian lows were swept. You had another break just there. So if you missed the first entry, you could look for a pullback into there to buy up based on the fact that all of these lows have been swept and price is still bullish. And there we go. So now we've had another break of structure. We zoom back out. So next level for buys would be this demand zone. That is a clearly valid zone. It's an imbalanced level of demand. We have this liquidity above it, or we could see price come lower and sweep these lows down here. There we go. So price swept the low into the demand. Let's now have a look at some potential entries. Yeah, so that's not something I would go off. It technically broke 5-minute structure just there, but there's not an imbalanced level of demand here to enter from. So I'm just going to leave it. Yeah, so there we go. Price is going lower. It has also now though swept that liquidity level I had marked on. So let's see how it reacts to this. No break of structure just yet. So for this to be confirmed, we need to see this high broken for it to flip back bullish. There we go. So if we look at the 5-minute, we've had that change of character just there. Not seeing any potential entry areas. Maybe if price can come back and take out this low. Yeah, it doesn't look like that's happening. Let's go back out real quick and look at potential targets. So that low was swept. We could look to target these highs up here as the next liquidity level. You can also start to anticipate that people are looking to sell from this supply as well. So you may see a small rejection of this, but I don't expect price to continue from there, given that it hasn't taken out previous sellers. So maybe a small reaction in here to then buy up to the liquidity. So let's have a look. Yeah, so there was your small reaction. This low was taken out, and then this looks like news. So you've now created this area of demand as well. Could see price come back into that. Nothing I would take at the moment. Cool, so our liquidity level has now been taken out as well. So we could see price sell from here, or it may just continue to this high. But personally, I would not sell this because once again, higher time frame, very bullish, as we can see. And this area of supply wasn't imbalanced anyway, so it doesn't meet all of my criteria. I'd much rather wait and see if price can retrace, take out some of these lows down here. So we have this one, just there. We also have this one just above. So if price can retrace, take out some of those lows, I would look for buys. No sells at the moment though. Okay, so you also have these sort of equal lows down there as well. Once again though, I'm not looking to sell down to that. See, so actually I would consider, instead of this demand, I would consider this low as an area of liquidity I've just seen on the 1 hour. So let's see if price can, there we go, take out all of those lows, which has just done. And there we go. So the liquidity has been swept. the next opposing liquidity we could target is this high. So let's see if we can get a lower time frame entry. Or actually, the next structure for price to break would be this one. Looking at the internal structure, we have lower low, lower high, lower low. So if this structure here breaks, we can then look to get in on some buys. And there we go. So price broke structure. We have this whole sort of area of demand down here. And this is one that I actually took as well in the live market. So I already know how this plays out. So my thought process at the time, if we just play price a little bit more. So price swept that low. Price is overall bullish, higher time frame. We had that 15-minute breaker structure. I was looking to buy up to this high. And then I also noticed that price was forming all of these lows above this imbalanced demand. However, this was a huge area, so it was around 80 or so pips. So what I did was set a limit at the 50%, slightly bigger stop, I think. And then I targeted this high up here. No further confirmation was needed on this, so I just set the limit. It looked like it was going to hit stop loss at first with this impulsive move. But I was seeing this also as just a liquidity grab to sweep these London lows. Price was moving up very correctively. So you always are anticipating something like this to take out previous lows before price heads higher. And then this played out very nicely overnight. And eventually or not. Oh, that's strange. It hit take profit on my broker. Maybe this was FX Replay uses a different broker, so maybe this was missed. But oh well, that was a good trade regardless. That would have been very annoying if price had gone a couple of pips away from this level and then reversed. That is the end of August though, so I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.